Yes.
I just organized these things. Okay, so just a reminder to silence your phones. We're coming on 1 minute. I'll do an intro thanking everybody, and then I'll introduce you, Tim, and you can mention what I did not mention.
Yep.
And then start it. Is that good? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me on the mic? Should I hold it up? Okay. Yep. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kelsey Doom. I'm the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce President and CEO. We are here in this crazy time in our world with a very important event that we wanted to host regardless of our circumstances, and that is our candidate forum for City Council and School Board. And so what we are going to be doing is we have the candidates here. We're all practicing social distancing, but we're going to ask that our questions come in virtually instead of the public being present with us. So there's a few ways that you can ask your questions. We can text my cell phone at 605-481-2493. You can comment on this live feed. We have a volunteer at home checking Facebook and emailing them to us. You can email us at Kelsey, K-E-L-S-E-Y, at brookingschamber.org, or you can Facebook message the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. So a few different ways for you to ask questions for our candidates. This will last an hour. We will shut down this Facebook Live, get everybody set up for the next forum, which is the school board. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Tim Reed, our moderator.
Good morning and welcome to our candidates and to everybody that's watching and listening, whether it be on the public access government TV or on Facebook. I'd like to thank Kelsey and the Chamber for working hard to put this event together. And what we're having here for our first hour from 8 to 9 is our City Council Candidate Forum. It's a little different how we're doing it than normal. Just make sure that we are doing the social distancing that's been recommended by the CDC. We have 10 or less people in the room here. You can see that the candidates are very spread out. We're usually not spread out quite so much to keep social distancing. And of course, we really made sure that we had good hygiene practices by cleaning up the area, and we'll do that in between our forums also. As Kelsey said, there's several ways to send in questions. There's a Facebook Live feed that many of you are watching on, and you can comment right there. You can do the Facebook messaging to the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. You can also text 605-481-2493 or email Kelsey at brookingschamber.org. So I'd like to, one thing I should note, the current plan for the election is April 14th. There is legislation. I serve as your District 7 House of Representatives, and there is a bill in front of us that would move that election to sometime in June. And so we'll see what happens. We're meeting on Monday to discuss that bill. So although right now the election is on April 14th, it could be moved in the future. I would suggest people take a look at how you can do mail-in ballots, or we don't want a big rush at any time, but there will be the ability to vote here at the county city building when absentee balloting does open up. So I'd like to introduce our city council candidates. We have 2 seats open, and we have 3 people that are running. The people that are running are Joey Collins, Cassie Juba, and Oepke Niemeyer. So what we'll do for our forum is we'll have a 3-minute introduction by each of the candidates, and then there'll be 2 minutes to answer each question that we have, and then we'll take time out at the very end to have closing comments by each of the council candidates. So we will start with Ms. Juba, and she has a time for a 3-minute introduction.
Thank you. I am Cassie Juba, and I am hoping to serve as your neighbor on the Brookings City Council. Right now, more than ever, we need a strong council that is committed to the needs of this community and connected to the needs of this community. If elected, I want to commit myself to affordable and workforce housing action, ensure the safe passage of Brookings' growth and strategic plans that will support the community and local businesses, and bring brainpower together to advance policy, which we will desperately need in the coming months. I've already spent time poring over documents, articles, and books, and spending as much time in person before this crisis and now over video with constituents and community leaders to learn about their perspectives and the needs of our community. Right now, I think this city needs a fresh, new voice that is committed and dedicated to understanding the needs that we will have in the coming months. I love this city, and I know that I'm ready to get to work for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Juba. And now we'll go to Mr. Niemeyer.
Good morning. My name is Oepke Niemeyer. I have been fortunate to serve on City Council for 3 terms. As a community member for 26 years, my wife and I raised 2 daughters here. We're fortunate enough to have them go through the Brookings School District, and they moved on to college and have their own personal careers now. And I'm a proud grandparent of 2 granddogs so far. My wife Beth has a career in an engineering firm in town. I have had my own private business of floor covering installation for the past 35 years. It's been a good business. It's been very successful, and I've had a lot of young men and women come through my doors that I was fortunate enough to train to learn how to do the flooring business. As all trades would agree, we have a small employment pool, and that is one of my concerns in this city. Is we have a lot of job openings. We have worked with the BEDC to enhance education and jobs. Along with that comes affordable housing, as Cassie has suggested, and we in the past and in the future will work with developers to help them make an affordable home that is quality built and locally put together by our local trades. The other thing that would be a major concern of mine that I think we need to consider as we expand is storm drainage. We have lots of projects on the future and ones that we are correcting to help neighborhoods that have existing problems now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer. And now we'll move on to Mr. Collins.
Thank you. My name is Joey Collins. I'd like to thank the Chamber and all the volunteers here for all your help this morning. 21 years ago, I moved to Brookings seeking a beautiful, heartwarming, exceptional community, and I found those elements right here in Brookings. I'm proud to have raised my 2 girls here. While raising my family, I served the great community of Brookings by protecting and serving through law enforcement. Throughout my years in law enforcement, I was honored with a hefty list of awards highlighting my hard work and dedication. I know I can apply my work ethic and drive for helping the community to serve Brookings in a different way. Fighting for the future that's fiscally conservative to ensure our children's future is my passion. Pursuing real practical solutions is my strength, especially in the face of false promises that we see on TV all the time. I think we can be mindful of our budget while allocating our resources to the best of their uses. I believe we can have a substantial relationship among everyone in the community. You know, I was in the military for 3 years. I'm a combat veteran. After that, I worked at the state penitentiary. I moved on into law enforcement, and I worked for the Brookings County Sheriff's Department, and also I retired in 2017 as a lieutenant with the Brookings Police Department. What does that have to do with running for the seat of City Council? It just shows my dedication and hard work and my service to the community, and I want to continue to serve the community of Brookings. in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Well, we'll move into questions, and remember you have 2 minutes to answer each of the questions. We'll start out with kind of a high-level question here about our form of government, and have you describe how you see the role of a council member in a city council, city manager form of government. So the role, basically, the role of a council member in the city council, city manager format of government that we have here in Brookings. And we'll start with Ms. Juba.
Great question. I think the most important role of a city council member is to stay connected and visible in the community. So we are up to date on the concerns of our constituents. It is our job to spend not just the hours in the public meetings, but the hours outside of those meetings, connecting with individuals, experts in the field we're being asked to address, and researching those issues so we make the best decision for our community. The relationship between the city manager and the city council is that the city council makes decisions and should consult the expertise of our fantastic city manager. He has a great track record and a lot of expertise in areas specific to my platform points. So I think a balance between the city council being out in the community and understanding and referring to the expertise of the city manager when needed is imperative of a city council member.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
I feel the role of the city council is to set policy, and the role of the CEO is to perform that policy. In the past, we have changed some of our directions with a new city manager. We have taken steps to make sure that we put away reserves. We've been more proactive, and I think that you can kind of look at the city of Brookings as a corporation, and the city manager is the CEO, and we are the board. And setting aside day-to-day operations, those are for the city manager to take care of. We have to look to the future. We have to be accessible to the public, ask their concerns, and look for the future of what could possibly be the next major step for the city of Brookings. Make sure that we're going the right direction, and give the city manager guidance. We should never sit here and micromanage anything that the city manager does. That's his job to make sure that the day-to-day operations, and listen to his suggestions. He is an advisor to us also. And if there are concerned citizens that have a beef or a suggestion, they can approach any of the city council or the city manager, or go through the city manager to staff of a certain subject that it is in. I think it's probably the best setup that we can have for government. We have more control this way, and it doesn't consume the time of the city council members. We have other lives to do, and it's good to have a man or woman taking the lead of the business of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. I agree with Oepke. I think the job of the city council is to make policy for the city manager to follow and implement. Our city manager does a wonderful job. He's very busy. Every day he's got something going on. I'm not sure how he even gets a break with his jobs. I think we need to also focus on things that generate revenue, as long as it's good for Brookings. And like I said earlier, it's good for the council to write good policy and make sure we're doing the right things for Brookings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Our next question, and I think we need to kind of talk about sales tax and talk about it in the current, crisis that we're looking at, plus long term. So the question is, COVID-19 will have an impact on sales tax within Brookings. How will you work to confront this issue? And then take a look at that long term. What do you want to do to increase tax revenue for the city? And we'll start with Mr. Niemeyer.
Okay, so first of all, sales tax is our major revenue. When businesses are closed, people aren't going to restaurants or our lounges. That is probably the majority of our sales tax. So right now, we're going to take a hit. We're going to have to look at possibly closing down possibly facilities, but before we do that, we need to look at maybe cutting close to 30% of our budget, because we're going to lose about 30% of our revenue through this whole process. With that being in mind, there are some capital improvements that we can hold off on, take a look at possibly another revenue source. We have in the past already, in the last year or so, set up where we were putting more into reserves. We obviously will probably have to dip into the reserves that we have, because this is what they were there for. Reserves were designed to handle a disaster like this. And we first think about natural disasters, say for instance floods or tornadoes, that kind of thing. But this is a natural disaster also. So this is something that we have to take in consideration, is maybe possibly using some of our reserves. We are setting aside money that businesses can work with BEDC, and hopefully now that we have a stimulus package out there, that'll help some of our businesses also. But yes, there are no other revenue sources besides sales tax and property tax and some of the services that the city provides. Maybe possibly working with our reserves to create a better interest rate for the money that we receive on our reserves as far as interest goes. But the only thing that we can really do is possibly maybe expand more retail businesses once we get through this pandemic.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, our sales tax is already down prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's going to be difficult to come back. And I really appreciate all the business owners and everything that did what they had to do and close down, do the smart things. My wife runs a business. She does daycare at home, and she's closed down now, and we've been closed down for 2 weeks. So we know what you're going through, and we know what it's like, and we have to figure out a way to raise our sales tax, not taxes, but to figure out how we can get more sales tax from different areas in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and Ms. Juba, please.
Thank you. As Joey said, a lot of businesses were already seeing a dip in sales. Being a part of the downtown community, I certainly saw that. And I am very proud of local businesses for being ahead and making choices that keep our community safe and healthy while still doing what they can to keep their businesses afloat. Having an organization that is only a year old, I understand those struggles, and we are going to need to take a look at our reserves and also stay in constant communication and be in the doors of these local businesses to see what we can do to help them recover from this crisis. I also think taking a look at a downtown master plan where we have a lot of those businesses taking a hit, developing that and implementing it will help bring in new businesses and more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, and this came from a text, what will you do to lower the cost of housing in Brookings? And we'll start with Mr. Collins.
That's a really difficult question. You know, the big question, affordable housing, is a question that's been going on for quite some time. I'm willing to listen to any sort of ideas anybody has. I know there's grants that we can get through the government that might be able to help out. I'd like to see us work more on what we can do for like the lower income families, and work together with that, together with everybody, and try to figure out a way to get it lowered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba?
I think collaboration and bringing people to the table is the most important thing here. In the last few months, I've spent a lot of time with developers and also nonprofits working in affordable and workforce housing. And the general consensus is that developers at the end of the day do need to make money, but they are open to and would like to commit themselves to affordable and workforce housing. I think the council has done a good job in the past taking a look at variances and granting them when needed to make affordable housing more realistic. And I know there's a development with Clark Drew Construction currently in an in-between phase, and I think getting that set up and going so we can see how that functions and how that serves the community is a priority of this council.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
Okay, so I was fortunate enough to be involved in economic development program that the council before I got on had developed, and it was based on using a TIF to help pay for the infrastructure, and the trade-off of that was the two entities that had a couple of affordable housing projects were to set the price of the home at an affordable rate. Both of them were very successful. Both of them were done. I think I want to say that it was over 100 units were done. Valley View and Oakwood Equity were the two entities that, or neighborhoods that were done. They were done in less than 2 years. And they were very successful. Every one of these homes was sold immediately. Fortunately, it was during the stimulus plan that Obama had. You had $8,000 credit for your taxes. And so it was kind of a windfall for homeowners at the time then. We have not had something like that since. I would highly suggest that we consider doing that again. It was a good way to do it. The price point of the home based on square footage was a requirement. We could probably tweak that a little bit to see what didn't work there and what did. One of the compromises was having smaller lots, narrower streets. I don't know as if we'd do that again. The fire department wasn't too crazy about the narrower streets, and now that some of these homes are being sold again, some of the people moving into them are saying, why do we have such narrow streets? So we have to look at public safety also when we're doing this, and density of the homes, so that it's a possibility of maybe looking at an expansion of a home, or somebody wants to put an extra building in. We need to look at that type of a situation also. I think we should go back to square blocks with alleys. I think we can take a look at that. I think I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question has to do with mental health care in the city of Brookings. And the question is, what programs can Brookings provide to support mental health needs of our city? And we'll start with Ms. Juba.
I think there are a number of very wonderful organizations in Brookings committed to this ideal, and the council needs to work closely with them. We just saw the state bill for 211 passage come through, and the 211 community and Brookings and the nonprofits that work with it are incredible. So I think the council staying up to date. I know a while ago when Ope was up for re-election in the past, it was a conversation and a study that the council did, and I do think, especially after a difficult time like this, the council needs to look into that again. So staying connected to 211, behavioral health, Brookings Area United Way, nonprofits that provide services and are understanding and connected to the needs of this community is a top priority, because after a crisis like the one we are living through currently, the needs of the community are going to increase inevitably.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
Mental health should be a concern, and we should keep talking about. We had a retreat a few years back, and I had made mention that we have organizations in this town that have tried to bring it to the forefront. Now that we've had a mental health task force, come up with some suggestions from there. Dan Hansen was heading that up. It's comfortable to talk about mental health now. It used to be that nobody made people nervous to talk about. And I think that if we keep talking about it, take some action on it, support some of our nonprofits. East Central Health is on the forefront of it. We have good people in place to handle the situation. Yes, right now this pandemic is going to cause more people some stress. There's no doubt about it. But if we can help the citizens that do have mental conditions, whether it's medication or counseling, these could become contributing citizens of our society and also be able to hold a full-time job, whereas sometimes in the past they haven't been able to do. So it is a continuing effort. We do, as a city, we should be able to support one way or another, whether it's through trying to help get grants or set up facilities. And the hospital is taking somewhat of a chance at it. And and even with the jail expansion, there is a section in the jail that is set up for mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, I don't think we're doing enough for mental health. I have that unique perspective as being a police officer and being on numerous calls. And what happens is somebody who threatens to hurt themselves. We take them to the hospital, and the hospital does their evaluation. And if they decide to, they either take them to Sioux Falls or to Yankton for a 72-hour hold. Once they're done with that and the doctors say everything's okay, well, they come back to Brookings. They come back to what? We need counseling when they come back. We need to get them in some sort of a program that has to be some sort of an order. And I think, the city council, we need to pay more attention to what's going on in our mental health because it's bad out there. We need to work on it together. Thank you.
And we'll come back to Mr. Niemeyer on this one to start it off. The city has many community boards. What would you change, if anything, to make these more effective?
I guess I don't know if we can improve upon what we already have. We have good citizens and willing volunteers to be on most of our boards. I think that most of the boards that we have right now have been very effective. I think maybe more citizen input wouldn't hurt. Making sure that the schedules for the community boards that we do have are available to citizens, so that and maybe our public information officer is doing much better at that, since we've changed a little bit in the way how we communicate with the community. If there are concerned citizens that have an issue, I think most of the community boards that we have are more than willing to take those up. Trying to improve upon it, I guess I don't have any major suggestions, except maybe streamlining them so that, if anything, maybe have the meetings public like we have our council meetings and county boards.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yeah, I don't know if I changed too much about any boards. I might like to allocate, some more money to East Central mental health for the mental health issue that we just talked about. When you think about mental health, it's not just somebody wanting to hurt themselves or anything like that. It's the living conditions that some of our kids are living in right now. And I think if we can do something more with that, I'm open for suggestions from the community. I think we need a lot more community input on that matter to help us out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
As it was communicated before, I do think we have very effective and involved boards. However, I would like to see more community involvement. We have a lot of community members that feel very comfortable reaching out to council and these boards, but there are a lot of people that don't understand how and when to effectively communicate with these boards. So I think it's the job of the council to make sure that they have updates from each of these boards, that they refer to the expertise of each of these boards. And I would personally like to see the council have some sort of open office hour schedule so that the community and the members of these boards have more access to the council members to express their concerns and questions.
Thank you. Now we'll go start this one off with Mr. Collins. Now that the court ruled that the county does not need a city building permit, and that's to build a jail, do you think the city council should have any more involvement in the process?
No. I think we did enough prior to this. I know we spent a lot of money going to court, things like that. I really wish we wouldn't have spent all that money. It is a county issue, and I just think we needed the jail, and it needed to be right there. So I have no issue with the jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
I would have to agree. I believe it is time to move on. I understand both sides of the argument, but it is a county issue, and a lot of time and resources have already been spent. And I think when you have conversation with law enforcement officers, that is always the first thing they bring up, whether you're having a professional or personal conversation with them. So it is time to move forward. And I think during a time of a COVID-19 pandemic, it is obvious now that the safety and healthy choices that that building would bring to the staff working there and those spending time there would be critical if this were to ever happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer.
All right. When we first decided to go up against the county on this, I was tentative on it. I didn't like the idea, spending taxpayer money to sue taxpayer money. We spent $29,500 on this trying to make a point, and the judge ruled against the city. I think it's time to move on. I think the expansion is necessary. What we have now is antiquated, not sufficient. I think that the new plans, the renditions that I've seen are going to help us for hopefully the next 20 to 30 years. And I'm still not a fan of the expansion at the courthouse location. I think it could have been put somewhere else. We have other communities in the state of South Dakota that have jails that are not connected to the courthouse or near the courthouse. And I wish the county probably would have taken a little bit more time on an alternative location. But it is what it is, and we need to move on. There are other things to be concerned about.
Thank you. And our candidates are doing a terrific job answering the questions, pretty concise, which is great. So we do need more questions. Again, if you have questions and you're watching this on Facebook, you can just comment right in the live comment section, or you can message through Facebook, the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce, or you could text 605-481-2493 or email kelsey@brookingschamber.org. And our next question, we'll start out with Ms. Juba. What service do you do in the community to specifically, let me start over here. What service do you do in the community and specifically about anything that has been done to help neighbors during the pandemic?
I run a small nonprofit called Play Personalized Learning Adventures for Youth, and currently we are trying not only to best serve our paying clients, but also offer free services to parents that have their children at home and are struggling to keep the balance between staying sane and keeping that educational work go forward. I also serve as a host for 1 Million Cups, which supports and helps develop small businesses and local businesses, and we've been doing the best we can to make smart, safe choices. We're not currently holding 1 Million Cups in the physical space, but making sure that we use online resources to highlight those needs and to highlight those businesses so that when we can return to normal life, those businesses see individuals coming in. I also work with the Council of Nonprofits, so staying connected to those individuals and being on top of mental health needs and people quickly losing income and jobs, and understanding that we will see a spike in unemployment and need to address homelessness and cost of living is what I'm currently doing to make sure that we continue to build Brookings up and are a strong community after we get through this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer.
I think we need to be worried about the people that are going from paycheck to paycheck. We have families in this town that if the transmission goes out of their car, they can't get to work, they might lose their job. Now we add the pandemic to it, their job might be already eliminated for the moment. I have employees. As a private business owner, I have concerns whether or not the job sites we're going to go to are going to get shut down. We've had a few job sites already. Fortunately, we have 3 hospitals that we're doing that we have to try and get done. But I have taken steps with my employees and said, look, you've got a sniffle, stay home. The rest of us need to keep going. We don't need to put anybody else in endangerment, and that would I would say that we need to explain to our whole public that if you don't need to be somewhere, stay home. The longer we stay apart from each other, the shorter the amount of time it's going to be, so that this curve can go flat and we can move on to a real life again. If anything, make sure that we have available food, available housing. If anybody's got any concerns, I'm sure that we, as a city, can direct them. The number 212, is it? What's the number that we can call?
211.
21, yeah. Call that number, and they will quickly direct you to wherever you may need to have services or help from. We have a good connected community, and there are people here to help. If there are any other concerns, please get on the website for the city, and I'm sure that they can help out also. Like I said, we're all in this together. We need to be able to help each other and get through this, and hopefully everybody stays alive.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, I agree with Oepke. I think everybody needs to just stay home. The sooner everybody does that, the quicker we can get over this pandemic. And I'm a member of the VFW, American Legion, and Disabled American Veterans. At this point, I'm not sure if we're able to do anything because of the virus and everybody staying at home and everything. I wish there was more I could do. I'm one of those at-risk individuals, so I have to stay locked up, and I have to thank the chamber for making it available for me to come in today to kind of stay away from everybody. But it is very difficult. Like I said, my wife runs a business, and it's difficult for us, our families that we have. It's difficult for them because they don't have daycare. But we have to be careful, and we have to all do our part to make sure that we're staying at home. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question will start with Mr. Niemeyer. What specific cuts would you make within the city when faced with budget shortfalls? So what specific cuts would you make within the city budget when faced with shortfalls?
I guess the first thing I would consider is some of the big ticket items that we have for capital improvements, maybe equipment that we have cited for replacement that we could get by another year. Like I said, we're already looking at cutting the whole budget across by 30% and holding off on non-essential things that we need to have now. And of course, the big ticket items would be like a payloader, gravel trucks, maybe postponing the expansion of the landfill. It's already been bid out. Some of those things are going to be in flow already, but there are some projects that we may have specifically. I can't name any right now, but there's nothing wrong with delaying capital improvement purchases. I think would be the first thing that we would consider. I think ongoing maintenance on buildings that if we need these facilities up and running yet, or some things that we may need to do. Budget-wise, I can't think of anything else specifically, but we're already strategically looking at 30% budget cuts across the board, or delaying purchases, I think would be one of the first things we would do.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yeah, I think we need to make cuts all across the board, talk to our department heads and see what they can go without for a while and not order anything big. All the big programs or ideas that we had, I think we need to slow everything down for a while. Like the improvement at the, I-29 corridor there, I think we need to stop on that for a while, save that money as much as we can. And like I said, just make cuts all across to manage for this till we get through the virus. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba?
I would agree that capital improvements and maintenance, when safe, holding off on all of those things is imperative right now. We have some idea of what the community need is going to be, but we still don't understand where that money is going to need to be spent or how much we will lose. And staying in constant communication with city staff and heads of departments is very important right now. We have a fantastic city staff that are very good at their jobs. So spending time going through a detailed budget with each of them and understanding what things can wait and what things are still important is going to be important to make sure that we get through this without losing a significant amount of money.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Collins. How do we work with employers to increase wages to compete with neighboring states?
Well, as of right now, we're not going to really be able to do anything until we're done with the virus. After that, I'm open for any kind of suggestions or anything, and I think we need to get a hold of the other states and find out how they're doing it, and then maybe copy that plan if it's working for them. But other than that, I think the first thing we have to do is get rid of the virus. once that is done, and then I think we can move forward with big plans of doing that. Thank you.
Ms. Juba.
As someone that runs a small organization, I understand all the costs that go into that. So looking at affordable housing, affordable rent, and all of those expenses that come in would be essential, and making sure that these local businesses and larger corporations have the funds to increase wages. I would agree that right now our focus needs to be keeping this community safe and getting those living here currently through this crisis, and then look at how we can increase those wages and get these businesses through this.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
I think sometimes as a private businessman, I've had to raise my wage rate, even the starting wage rate, to compete against other employers. I think that the competitive market is the one that drives the wage rate. And yes, we are competing against other states. We traditionally have been lower in pay than some of our neighboring states are, but we also need to enhance the idea that the quality of life in South Dakota is much better than some of the other surrounding states. When I talk to other installers in my business throughout the United States, I'm in line as far as my pay scale with those other installers. But those other installers also probably are living in a house the same size as mine, but paid twice as much for it. So I think a lot of times we need to educate people as in what it costs, the cost of living in the state of South Dakota versus living in another state. We don't have an income tax. We have our economy here is a strong economy. We have a lot of jobs. The quality of life is here. Education, health. We need to promote a lot of that besides that. Yes, it's good to earn more. Self-education gives you a better position for a better paying job. Other competing businesses, I mean, as long as most of our businesses in town are looking for help, they may have to raise their wage rate in order to get that quality employee over versus, say, the other employer. So a lot of times I consider the private industry as the driver of what a wage rate can be.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Juba, and it's really a two-part question. It has to do with the city-owned liquor store. So the first part of the question is, should the liquor store reopen in Brookings? And the second is city ownership of a business like the liquor store still a good idea? So we'll start with Ms. Juba.
With what's going on right now, that is something I've certainly wrestled with. I do not think we should be reopening the liquor store. I know it is tempting because it brings in money for the city, but as we've spoken about earlier, we need to take this seriously, and we need to only go out when it is essential. And the faster that we take this seriously, and the more seriously we take staying home and only going out when needed, the quicker we can go back to business as usual. The summer is going to be essential for these businesses to rebuild themselves, and we need to know that we are safe going forward in the summer months. I know that the city being involved with the liquor store has been up for discussion in the past. I would like to eventually see them not be connected. However, I don't think right now it is realistic to cut those ties because the city is going to need that flow of income. Thank you.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Currently, it is closed. There has been some discussion of maybe reopening it based on limited access to the liquor store, such as maybe carry out or drive up. Since we don't have a drive up window, carry out would probably be they're looking at possibly setting up some situation where customers can come to the door. I don't know how all that is going to look like yet. As far as maybe privatizing the liquor store or maybe considering having agents sell alcohol for the city. That has been in discussion in the past. It's always kind of gone along the wayside. We create $500,000 worth of revenue off of that, and most of that money goes to, for instance, you could look at it this way: the budget we have for nonprofits, that outside agencies that we support, pretty much gets covered by the amount of money that comes off of the revenue for that liquor store. I've always kind of looked at it that way. I think that There is time for open discussion of maybe privatizing it. What that system would look like, I have no idea. I would expect that we would have more than one agent, maybe retail grocery stores, maybe a private entity that wants to expand their convenience stores. There are different models out there. It has been a revenue source for the city of South Dakota, or city of Brookings, for numerous years. It would not be something I would take lightly if we made decisions in that direction.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
Yes, I would also say no to opening it back up again. It goes along with the COVID virus. If we just stay at home and do what we're supposed to do, I think we can get over this a lot quicker, and we can open it up a lot quicker as well. As far as privatizing, I would also say no on that. It's too much income for the city right now, and we need that for, if you want our roads to be nice, if you want our police department squared away, if you want all the things that come with the city of Brookings, we have to keep that revenue, and we just need to keep it for now. But I'm open for any conversation, and if anybody can change my mind, well, that would be great too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba? Oh, I'm sorry. I think, has all three answered that one? Okay. I shouldn't have put that question away so quick. Okay, so then our next question goes to Mr. Niemeyer. This is an email question. Due to an increase in online shopping, do you have any ideas for the marketplace project?
Currently, we have signed letters of intention. That's as far as we've gotten so far. The online sales versus retail has always been a discussion. I think that if anything, we should support our local entities first before we look anywhere else. Obviously, being 45 minutes from Sioux Falls, we have a lot of retail drainage to begin with. But I think that homegrown businesses would be something that we should support more than anything. Some of the businesses we have in downtown Brookings right now are a good example of using them as a model to start up a homegrown business. We have a few businesses down there that are just thriving. They have an excellent business model. I think that maybe if we do fortunately get someone to start going out to the marketplace, eventually there'll just be a domino effect, and we'll have more coming behind that. It is an opportunity. Right now, the economy is not doing well again, and retail is struggling because of online sales. I get it. A lot of these stores are looking at smaller box stores, smaller square footage. We have been approached once by a outlet project, and that went along the wayside. So it is an ongoing project. We also are always willing to help and support BADC with the other developers that have retail space also. It's not just about the marketplace. We need to remember that we have developers that have business space also in different regions of the city. We are finally getting sales tax from the online sales, which is a plus. And yes, it is a hard thing to compete against, but please support your local businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Yes, again, I agree with Oepke. I think, we're already hurting since we went down a percentage from sales tax from last year, and the commitments that we have to pay for now and in the future. We need our people in Brookings to shop in Brookings first before they go anywhere else. I like the fact that we are getting sales tax now from online shopping, but maybe some more marketing we could do. I'm open to any ideas anybody has to help move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Juba.
I agree, whether it be the marketplace or other small businesses in town, it is very important for us to be spending our money locally whenever possible. These small businesses were the leaders when it came to making sure that we stayed safe but still functioned as much as possible during this COVID-19 crisis. So making sure that we spend money at these places and shop locally and help them market themselves to the community is very important. These are also the businesses that buy Girl Scout cookies from your kids or donate packages to nonprofits. They give back to the community. So when you are spending money locally, you are investing back in a business that has been invested in this community and the needs of the people living here.
Thank you. We'll now start off, or this next question will start off with Mr. Collins. And it's an email question. Should the 22nd Avenue project continue in light of the tax revenue loss?
That's a difficult question. I think it needs to move on, but again, because of the virus that's going on right now, we have to pause things like that for a while until we can get back on our feet. Maybe next year, when this is all over, we can go back to it and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba?
I think moving forward is a good idea. Taking a look at the phases and pauses that are available in that project would be very important, but I believe it's a project that's already had its foot in the door and we need to continue, but taking a look at how far forward we can work and the phases of that project will be very important to make sure that we are keeping a balanced budget.
Thank you. Ms. Niemeyer?
Are we talking about the 20th Street interchange, or are we talking about continuing the project on 22nd Avenue going south of where we've already been?
My understanding of the question is 22nd Avenue.
Okay, so nothing's happening on 22nd Avenue in the year 2020. We are slated to do more on it in 21, but that doesn't mean that it can't be delayed. As far as the 20th Street interchange, that is a timed event. We need to keep going on that, or this grant is not going to be available. And as far as the 22nd Avenue goes, if I'm understanding correctly, and my knowledge sometimes is vacant in my mind, but we are not doing anything on 22nd Avenue this year. I think is slated to do the rest of the improvements south of where we ended in year 2021 or 22, and then eventually everything north of 6th Street going towards 14 Bypass is slated for the third phase. So just to clarify the understanding of that.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Ms. Juba. It's an emailed question. Should the city invest in land? Why or why not?
The city investing in land, I think, is an important part, possibly in developing workforce and affordable housing and talking to developers and deals that they can make with the city when purchasing land or developing on land using TIFs and different grant money that is available. I think that that will help solve the issue of workforce and affordable housing. What we consider affordable is not necessarily realistic for a lot of the people struggling in this city. There is a underserved population that cannot afford to stay here. So I think that that would be a possibility for the council to look into that could help move forward action on those projects.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer.
So in the past 3 years, we've had some opportunities to purchase some land that was owned by the state. We have chose not to. We have some industrial land that's available for expansion through the BEDC that we can offer. We have business sites by, say, Capital Card Center and the Newspaper Association that's available for, say, a business entity that wants to put a large building in. We do have the marketplace for development. I think that that should be sufficient. As far as purchasing land for affordable housing, there is land available now. There are developers that are looking at it. I think if we did anything, we should be able to help with the infrastructure or cost of it. Like I said, through using the tool of a TIF, property tax rebate incentives for short term. I think purchasing land to maybe enhance affordable housing, I think the city should stay out of that. If we do anything, we should be able to enable developers. I don't want to get too far into it. We start competing against our private entities. Public-private partnerships will go away along the wayside. I'm more into public and private partnerships than I would be to initiate a development on our own.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Yes, I think we should invest in land. I think it's important that we do that. If we talk about affordable housing, I just don't know what's affordable housing here in Brookings. Or, I mean, what's the number? Is it like 150 to, 175? Land is expensive right now, and it's, the land that you buy for your house is only supposed to be 30% of the house's value or whatnot. And I think if we can invest in as much land as we can, we will see a return of investment off that. So I think, yes, I think we need to invest in land, and I think we need to help with infrastructure and things like that to help people be able to afford houses.
Thank you. We've done really well. Actually, I think we'll only not be able to get to one of the questions, which is terrific. We've got one more left here. Matter of fact, we're going to make this one a little bit of a lightning round where you got 1 minute to answer it. But it's a one-thing question, so it shouldn't take longer than a minute. And we'll start with Mr. Niemeyer. What is the one thing you feel you could bring as a council member that sets you above the others?
I guess obviously experience. Having been on council for 3 terms, I've seen a lot of things come and go. I've seen a lot of projects that have been a major success, but I've also seen some situations where we've had some failures and something that we can learn from. I still believe that the Brookings City Council should be proactive like we have been and not reactive. I think that is probably the best approach that we can do is be proactive, plan for situations. We set aside money to plan for this pandemic. We have reserves. We have changed how we maintain our buildings. We're putting money aside for future maintenance on the buildings. And I think that with the experience that I've had, sets me apart from the other 2 candidates.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, what was the one thing you feel you could bring as a council member that sets you above the others?
I have a unique perspective. Since I did work for the city, I know how the city works. I know what the departments need. I know what they don't need. I feel that just that experience alone will, I just want to be your independent voice. Essentially, I want people to contact me with any questions or anything, and I'll help you out. I'll listen. And like I said, I have that unique perspective since I did work for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
I think my connection and perspective, I have recently started a small organization and I understand more closely the needs of someone trying to start out, and I'm connected to that community that had been struggling before this pandemic and is struggling more significantly, and that group is growing at this time. So I would say my connection and knowledge of that group, and always doing my homework and making sure that I understand what those people need and what the city can do to help those individuals.
Thank you, Ms. Juba. So now we will have 1 minute closing, just if there's some other things that you would like to say. And so it'll be 1 minute, and we'll just go the reverse direction, and we'll start with Mr. Collins.
Well, thank you again. I'd like to thank everybody here for attending. Thank my opponents for attending as well, and I know that they have the interest of Brookings foremost first, as I do. But I think, I've been around a while. I have a lot of contacts in the city, and I've been here for 21 years. I feel my experience and my contacts, I can bring that to the city council and do what we need to do to move the city forward. Thank you.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Thank you all for putting this forum on. I think it's been a success. I've learned a lot. Never admitted that I know everything. But I asked the community to make sure they can... Oh, I didn't have my mic on, I'm sorry. I asked the community to please vote. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve this great community of Brookings, South Dakota. I think that it is your right and privilege to vote for the people that support you. And please vote. Your opinion counts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
I want to thank everyone that was a part of putting this together, everyone for tuning in and submitting questions, and my fellow candidates. It's really exciting to see individuals want to serve the community that we love so much. I also want to thank everyone that's been committed to keeping this community safe and healthy and meeting the needs of those during this time. In the coming months, we are going to need to stay connected, and I know that I have the energy and dedication to revitalize the city after we go through this difficult time. So as Ope said, please come out and vote. Make sure you are safe when you vote, and I hope the next time that I get to chat with people in this room, I am getting to work as your newest city council member. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all the candidates. We're in some difficult times, and it's just great to see that we have candidates that want to run and want to help out during these trying times. I've sat and done several of these forums. I've also sat in those chairs running for different offices. And one of the things that's kind of nice at the end of it, because you're nervous, no matter what, you're nervous, you're wondering about this, and it's great to have the crowd clap for you at the end. So we're going to have, there's five of us here, but hopefully people at home will clap for you guys because it's terrific what you're doing. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our Chamber Executive Director, Kelsey Doom.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're really just excited that we could do this. Thank God for technology. So we are going to stop this video and then get everybody set up for the school board forum, and that'll take place at 10:15. So if you want to tune in, go for it. You can text questions to 481-2493, email them to kelsey@brookingschamber.org, or message the Brookings Chamber Facebook page. So thank you guys so much. See you soon.